As Vice President EMEA Marketing, Alexis Oger leads a team of over 300 talented marketers driving the digital acceleration at Dell Technologies. Hello, Alexis.
Hey, Adam.
Good morning.
Thank you for the invitation.
Hey, no worries whatsoever. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I'm really, really kind of excited and interested about this chat. We're going to be talking about people, technology, and society. Those kind of three pillars. So we've got some questions that sort of people-based, then technology-based, then society-based. But obviously, if your answers bounce between all three, that's absolutely grand. We're happy with that. So let's say the first one we got here is what are the biggest challenges in marketing now, given that we're in the age of individualism?
Yeah, I think, first of all, when I was looking at your introduction here, I think there is something that is critical for all of us as marketing to understand, is the pace of acceleration. The acceleration is a change that is driving. And to your point, it is based on three key elements that we marketeers need to really understand. The evolution and the pace of change, the way the humans are, the way the society evolves, and the technology that is driving that evolution. And let me give you an example on each of them before I answer specifically to your question.
Yeah, of course.
If you think about people, the pace of acceleration, I'll give you an example. Between my father and myself, there is one generation, roughly 30 years. Between myself and my kids, for the same 30 years, there are probably 3 or 4 generations. Even between my kids that are 3 or 4 years delta, they are acting differently. When I talk about generation, I'm talking about group of people that are thinking or acting different from others. And I think that the first thing is that very, very fast the way people are changing. The second thing, and you mentioned it as well, is technology, right? And we're gonna talk a little more about it in a few minutes, I guess. But it's just look, how many of you are working from home now, right? Like 5 years ago, that was not the case. There are a lot of change that are impacting the way we work. We're going to talk about as a service as well. We all expect seamless experience in the way we act, and I think it's important. And the last piece is society. The society is evolving a lot, right? I'm not commenting the past weeks because it's obviously also a big change right now. But what we expect from the society and what we expect from brands we're buying from is also changing based on that. The concept of identity for a brand is much more important than it used to be. So those are the three pillars that we as marketing need to really understand. And now back to your question about what is changing in marketing, that is that acceleration that is critical, right? And when you think about, you're talking about individualism in the society, I think the way it should be translated for marketing, it's about personalization. We all want and we're all used to have content that is tailored for us. So as marketing, we need to think about tailor-made content, but at scale, because you can't do a message for every single person. So that's what you need to think about. And that personalization at scale requires two main elements, which is what marketing is going. 20 years ago, when I started my career in marketing, marketing was more an art, the art of having the right messaging, and trying to find the way to engage customers. In 2022, marketing is a sum of art plus science, because you really need to understand the data, the content, and be able to reach your customer at the right time at the right moment. So personalization at scale and having the right mix of science and data is what marketing needs to think about.
And I was saying, Alexis, just so just because I'm curious, are we seeing, do you think, the death of marketing by demographic, or are we just seeing a more complicated marketing grid where demographic is one layer, affinity group might be another, context and channel a third and fourth? So is demographic dead, or is it now just one of many?
I think the beauty of marketing, of doing marketing today, right, is that we have more data than ever. So the beauty of that you can group your customers the way you want. Yeah, there are multiple ways to do this, but you really need to think on how you want to place that. So demographic or audience or personas, they're all very important words, but you need to make sure that you have the right strategy for each of your personas, right? So today I have more than ever a lot of demographics. I have more personas than I used to have a few years ago, or even 10 years ago. There are much more, and the fact that we can gather much more data than we used to about our customers or partners help us having much more insights and demographics than we used to.
Of course. So question number two, how have Dell differentiated people between customers and employees? We said at the start, that interview, did a brilliant interview, by the way, which I thoroughly enjoyed. We'll chuck it in the chat, and I recommend everyone gives it a read. For you, marketing has always been about bringing both customers and employees along on the journey. How do you differentiate between them at Dell?
It's a good question, right? I think first, marketing is about branding, right? Creating a brand that is attractive for your customers, but it's also you need to make sure that the brand is attractive for employees as well. Right now, it's called, for some people are calling this period the Great Resignation era, because many people are changing job or finding opportunities and quickly change the opportunity. But you need the brand to be attractive for employees as well, right? And when you have a global brand, I mean, like if I talk about Dell, we are 150,000 employees, right? So obviously, we need to make sure that the employees are as concerned by the brand as the customers, and they are also a great way of driving the brand, right? I mean, think about social media. When you have 150,000 active employees that trust the brand, that want to share the message and articulate it to customers, it's super powerful, because the word of mouth is much more important than it used to be. And if you think about the fact that one happy customer is sharing to 4 customers, while an unhappy customer is sharing to 15 to 20 customers, you better want to make sure that you have a lot of advocate of your brand, right? So employees are part of the brand, and the brand needs to care about employees as well, because that's the way it works. So I think it's a positive circle for everyone, right? For the brand, it's good, but for the employees as well. So a company needs to care a lot about their team members first, but as well as they do with their customers, and vice versa.
So there's a lovely quote, and of course I've forgotten who it's by, which is, everyone tries to make everything an either or. So for example, everyone talks about being customer centric. Richard Branson at Virgin says, no, you look after your staff first. Your staff will then look after your customers. But you're saying it's not either or, it's both and. You need to be customer centric, but you also need to look after your staff.
Yeah, I believe it's like a virtuous circle that is a positive one, right? Because I think customers and employees, they need to share the same point of view. There is one thing that is much more important today than it used to be. It's the concept of identity of a brand. Look, I'll give you an example. 5 years ago, the majority of brands were very silent on the challenges of society, including ours. I mean, when there was a social movement, conflict, we were never voicing, right? We were trying to stay away, kind of being neutral into any conflict or point of views. Today, and especially past years, with the fact that the COVID impacted many of us, we want to have a purpose in our life. We want a meaning in our life. And we expect the same from brands we're buying from. So a brand, they really needs to have an identity and a point of view. We're not buying from a brand that is neutral. We want to understand what we're buying from, what do they think about. Let me give you an example. Black Lives Matters. When that happens, it's a society fact. We, as a company, expressed our opinion and point of view for the first time on a social fact, saying that where we stand, what we believe, and how we want equality and treatment of people. 5 years ago, we would never have done that. But today we do it because, one, it is part of our values. And secondly, I think it's important to be transparent on what you think to your customers, because they also expect this from you. So a brand needs to have a point of view today, and it was not the case in the past.
That's, this I think I'm going to be very careful we don't disappear down this rabbit hole. I think this is an almost endlessly fascinating subject. But I will ask you one question, and a little bit of context. International Women's Day was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and lots of brands on Twitter, gosh, wow, amazing International Women's Day. We absolutely celebrate International Women's Day. In the UK, there was a bot called the Gender Pay Gap app that would retweet all of those tweets and say, the gender pay gap in this company is 17%. the gender pay gap in this company is 35%. The gender pay gap in this company is 0%. So it was simply it made no judgment. It just went, the scramble to remove tweets because people had put a tweet up and then their gender pay gap was exposed as being sort of 35, 40% or whatever. So that's the context. So I absolutely agree that I think people do expect brand these days to have a purpose. But how do you avoid, again, we're talking about the people section of this now, and I guess maybe touch society. How do you make sure that whilst that is true to the brand and the brand supports it, that you don't veer into the purpose washing or, politically uncomfortable areas?
It's a very good point, right? And I think it's critical because a point of view, a value, an identity can't be fake, right? That's why I was sharing that the term of employees and customers. It has to be authentic. If it's not authentic, it's backlash, like you said, right? So you need to be very authentic, and you need to be not only authentic, but you need to argument and to propose facts that are connected to what you say. I'll share with you our own strategy on this. First, a company to have an identity, you need to define clearly what is your why, what is your purpose, right? So Dell Technologies, you know us for PC, server, storage, and product solutions we offer on here, right? But our own purpose is to create technologies that drive human progress. And we've created something that we call Realize 2030. If you want, it's our vision for what we want to achieve by year 2030. And we articulate this around 4 areas. One is sustainability, what we do on sustainability. The second one is about cultivating inclusion. The third one is transforming life. And the fourth one is about ethics and privacy, right? So I'm sharing you our example, but the concept is probably something that every brand needs to think about because we have 4 pillars. Now we say we want to be at 2030. By example, for sustainability, we are saying that by 2030, 100% of our product will be made on, our packaging will be made on renewable or recycled product content. And half of our product itself will be also made on recycled. And every year, for now 3 years, we are sharing where we are today, like in 2021, on that goal. Like for inclusion, you were sharing the gender gap before. We are saying that by 2030, 50% of our workforce will be women. We work in IT, so the majority usually used to be men, right? But our goal is to have 50-50 by 2030 and 40% of women leader. Every single year, we are measuring and announcing in our end of year where we are on those goals. Right? So I think you can't say something and not prove it, right? You need to share what are your goals and where you are on that journey every single year. That's how you create trust. Because if you don't have the trust, if you're just saying things without really doing it, that is counterproductive to your point and your example. So you need a purpose, but you need to really make it happen, and you need to show it, and you need to be authentic and be trusted by your customers and employees. That's why I was sharing the importance of the both customers and employees together.
No, fantastic. Thank you, Alexa. That was brilliantly clear. You've been quoted before that within the role of a CMO in 2022, you must also be a customer identity officer. Now, what did you... we don't need any more job titles, for goodness sake, but what did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's true. And especially when you say customer identity officer, it's on CIO, which is already the IT guy, right? But I think what I mean here, and it's connected to the discussion we just had, is it's about the word trust. Look, marketing, it's not only about creating demand gen, it's also about having the right brand on the market and establish your brand strongly. And in order to do that, you need to create the trust with the customers. Example I just shared with you before, right? But if you don't create the right relationship based on trust, you will never get the right engagement. So you need to have that thinking. Now, think about how to do that, right? And how to create that trust with customers and getting that identity. First, you need to be a customer identity for two things: for the trust you create with your technology, but also people right now, when they browse online, they're fed up of being tracked. They don't give you their real name majority of time. They give you fake information because they don't want to be tracked and retargeted and every time, right? So you need to make sure that you have the right way of analyzing your customers and engaging them the right way with the right ethics and privacy statements. So that's something very important that you share with your customers, because you need to make sure that you don't create breach in the trust with your customers.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. We'll do one more on people, then we'll see. Go to the audience. How do you find that balance between changing to meet a customer's identity and creating your own brand identity to lead by example? And this sort of fits into something we're talking about here, which is it's kind of getting long-term value out of your brand assets. So how do you avoid just being reactive all the time and actually, defining the market a bit?
Yeah, I think connected. Back to the CMO role, right? It's not about the product piece. It's also about the company story, because that's the way people are changing. The second thing is that the way people are buying is also changing big time. In B2B and B2C, both, right? At first, the customer is much more self-informed than he used to be. Right now, if you talk about B2B sales, like 10 years ago, when a customer was calling a sales rep, he was roughly in 40 or 45% of his buying process. He was not sure what he wanted, but he had a point of view, but he wanted to get advice from the sales rep. Nowadays, when a customer is calling us or any companies that is in B2B, they are already between 75 and 80% of their buying process, because they're much more self-informed. They used to go online to learn, to talk with peers, and to get a strong information about what they want to buy before contacting you. And you do that in B2C as well. Look, in consumer, you're very experienced to browse online and to get your opinion and to understand what's true, what's not, when browsing online on a specific product. So the customer is much more self-informed. So you need to make sure that you contact and you create much more touch points with them through their buying journey. So it requires a brand to be early in the sales cycle with the customers. And when you're early in the sales cycle, you're more about the brand than you are about the product itself. That's why I think the role of a CMO is creating demand gen for sure. It's still the case, but it's also a lot about the identity and your brand to create that connection at start with customers. And that connection needs to be somehow emotional, have a purpose, as I said before.
And just very briefly, Alexis, again, out of complete curiosity. So, if I think about my own sort of history with these events, and particularly around marketing, about 10 years ago, we were talking about social media, and people were discussing Twitter and Facebook, and should they have a place on there, and what should that look like, and are they okay to let go control of their brand a little bit? Then you sort of go forward, and maybe sort of 5-6 years ago, the big conversation about content. I think because exactly of what you speak about, suddenly people were better informed online. Therefore, marketing had to just put content out there. You wanted people to know more about your brand. The things that would have been done by salespeople now had to be done by text and other sort of things. And now I'm wondering, where are we now, do you think? What are the kind of the hot button issues for you now as a CMO?
I think the majority, and I guess the audience is majority of marketing, right? I think it's that acceleration of pace we discussed before. If you think about the digital transformation, has impacted marketing like never. If you look back, I'm 23 or 4 plus years in marketing, and marketing is always evolving, which is great. That's one of the most interesting part of our job. But past 2 years has been a strong acceleration. In 2 years, we've done more than probably 10 years of acceleration. I think the majority of marketers today fully understand that their job is more important than it used to be, because marketing and IT are the ones that have been promoted somehow based on this COVID situation and the work from home and all the complexity. And for multiple reasons. One is because many of our buyers were working from home, and then suddenly, oh, how do I reach my customers? Well, they don't have they're on mobile now. We don't have their personal mobile. How do we reach our customers? Many companies were a little stuck on that, and marketing is a way to get that. And one of the way to get that is a digital transformation. I mean, I know I can tell you for me, right? But for us, events was roughly almost a third of our budget in 3 years ago. It is much more lower today, but the digital is booming. We're investing much more in digital, and guess what? We have a better traction because we can meet customers. And when I was talking about personalization at scale, that is what digital is offering to you. So that's clearly one of the thinking is marketing today needs to rethink the mix we are using. What are the best tactics? What are the best ways to engage? And one of the other very important pieces, we need to build tomorrow. And a CMO today needs to think about his own infrastructure. We are in a data era. We call that data paradox somehow. It's a fact that we have so many data, but very few is used within each of the company. And using data appropriately helps you serve your customer at the right moment, at the right time, and hopefully with the right messaging. And it helps you grow your business. So it's very important to make sure that you can build infrastructure so you can gather the right data, so you can have the right predictability on when to engage with a customer. So marketing needs to think about changing fast the mix, but also planning the near future and having the right platform to gather the right data and make the right AI and usage of machine learning to predict when the customer should buy.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much, Steve. Now, I have many, I promise you, questions for Alexa, but this isn't about me asking questions. Of course, it's about you asking questions. So please do pop any in the chat or raise your virtual hands. Producers Mike and Jack are here. They'll find you and bring you straight up. Just like Victor from ICP. Good morning, Victor. How are you, sir? And what is your question for Alexis?
Good morning, and thank you very much, Alexis. Wonderful talk. Really appreciate it. So we're a people-led business, exclusively people-led, and it's really interesting what you were saying around the brand effort for looking at consumers and employees as well. Brands spend such a significant amount of time, effort, and budget in building out customer journeys, life cycle, value proposition, the what's in it for me for your consumers and customers and loyalty and all that kind of stuff. Do you believe that it is part of marketing's job to do the same thing internally for employees? They certainly have the skill sets to be able to do it. And if so, have you done that at Dell and how?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I'll give you an answer because I asked the exact same question like a long time ago at one of my high school teacher. And I always remember his answer, which I think was a good one. He told me a good product marketing manager, and you can extend this to any kind of marketing, needs to spend a third of his time promoting his product to his customers, a third of his time promoting his product internally to his sales team, and a third of his time promoting marketing. And I think it's and the concept of marketing to the rest of the board and why we should invest in marketing. And I think it's a good answer because literally today, you need to think about your customer journey, but you also need to think about your employee journey and how you can help them achieve their full potential. Look, all the marketing content we produce is to attract customers, but at the same time, if you don't equip your sales rep with the right understanding of the customer journey, you're gonna fail because and I think right now, and the majority of you have experienced this, right? We have much more discussions with the sales leaders, educating them on marketing, because it's critical for them to understand that past 2 years have big change. I mean, when a GM is coming to me or to one of my team members, I would like to do an event here. The answer is why. Because it's not because you knew that tactic was a good one that it's gonna work. It's what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to get from that event? Maybe there are other tactics that are more efficient. So it's a lot about educating sales as well. But the buyer and customer journey is essential. But once you have created that, then it's about how you articulate and how you explain it and how you bring the right content from that journey to the sales rep, because the one that understands that, the one that use that content, it is proven that they are more efficient. So what we do is that we check who is using what and who are using the right tool, then we can very quickly articulate that their payout is better. So if you're a good sales rep, then make sure that you want to have the same payout. Just make sure that you understand the customer journey and the content you can use to drive that.
Fantastic stuff. Victor, I hope that answers your question.
It's great. Thank you
Lovely.
very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Victor. Much appreciated. Speak to you later. Take care. Are you talking there about social selling, Alexis, and kind of how, because that must naturally that must pull sales and marketing together. And I wondered there, what does the ownership look like, the leadership look like on that?
Yeah, so that's a tough one, right? First of all, we all know, and I'm not going to learn this to you, the impact of social media, right? So we have a very strong database at Dell because we have our customers direct, so we know many of them. And I can tell you, I'm French, right? But if I send an email to my whole B2B database in France, or if I do myself a strong LinkedIn post, I might roughly have the same numbers of readers. So you see the difference, right? If we roughly have 2,000 employees in France, imagine the impact of 2,000 employees doing that. So not everybody has the same network, not everybody has the same follow-up, but that's critical. So the scale of social media is very important for the brand, but also for demand gen. But you need to educate sales and the people that are using social media on how to, because it's not about being a brand chatterbox. It's about, again, it's the same thing. It's about people. Business is about people. It's about being trusted advisor for your customers. So you need to make sure you share content that is not always brand related. You need to have the right mix between brand and personal content. You need to be perceived as a trusted advisor from your customers and your peers to become a voice on the market as a sales rep. So it's a lot of education. And what we do ourselves, we've created something we call certification. So we train our sales rep and we give them a certification, and they can only post social media content on the company when they've passed that exam, where they understand the value and the risk and the advantage of social media. So social selling is clearly very important, but it starts always with social credibility. And when you're a trusted advisor, then you can sell. But if you are sharing content without really looking at what you're sharing, or you're just a chat box, then that's not social selling. You're creating confusion. So that's very important to train and educate the people on the benefit of social media, but the right how to as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. We have another question from our audience. It is Sheila, I think. Good morning, Sheila. And what is your question
Hello,
for
good morning.
Alexis?
Hello, I'm Sheila. I'm from Sanofi. And my question, I'm going back to purpose. I have to say, I really like what you mentioned about the importance of doing and the authenticity. This is something that we believe strongly at Sanofi as well. My question is about execution of purpose. So what is your view about investment between purpose messages and product messages? Because this is what always comes to at the end when we have to make choices and execute. Budget plays a big role. So what is your view? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very good question, but it's a very tough one to answer, because I think there is not one answer. It really depends on the company, right? You're a global company, I'm a global company. We probably have similar thinking on the brand because your brand is famous as well. For a smaller company, the answer might be different, right? So the investment depends on where you are from a brand point of view. I think, and also it depends on the market you're trying to reach, right? So Dell is mainly a B2B brand, more than a B2C, despite many people believe it's B2C, but we're a B2B brand. So our communication channels might be different, right? We don't go too much on TV, but that really varies by company. I think what you need to really understand is what is the best canal, depending on what I'm trying to achieve. And the second thing that I think many people forget as well is the fact that B2B buyers is an extremely personal buying process too. People believe that B2C is more personal than B2B. I believe the opposite. Because when you're a B2B buyer, you take a risk for your own career. If you're buying from the wrong products or the wrong solutions for your company, then it's a legacy you leave to your company, and it's highly risky, right? So I think it's very important to also understand that those people are buying also by taking risks. So that's where you need to think on what is your brand trust, and between demand and credibility of the brand, you need to find the right balance to your question. But very hard for me to give a percentage, right? Because that will be a very variable by company.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Steve.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Lovely to see you again today. Thank you very much, Steve. See you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye. Up next, Alexis, we have Caroline, I believe. Good morning, Caroline. Caroline, if I got your name right, or is it Caroline? Good morning, and what's your question for Alexis?
It's Carolyn.
Caroline.
It's Carolyn.
Good.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Alex. That was fantastic. Really enjoyed your session there. One of the things I'd like to ask is how do you really raise the awareness and the value and almost the respect of marketing across your business? Because I think you said yourself, it's more important than ever, our role. I think we all know that on this call today. How do you really make that resonate through your company? That's something I know a few of us find quite difficult to be heard sometimes effectively.
How do you spend a third of your time, Alexis?
Yeah, you've heard it, right? So I think it's true, Caroline, right? I think there is always be a debate between marketing, sales, and marketing role and responsibilities, and some companies are more advanced than others on this. The first thing I always answer, first, you need to promote marketing. You need to articulate what marketing is about. And I think I can give you one example, which I think resonates very well, right? Is the fact that between 10 years ago and now, the role of marketing is much more important. And I give you one fact point. The example I gave you, by the way, I think earlier today as well, is the fact that a customer, when he's calling and engaging a rep today, is almost already at 80% of his buyer journey. So he made his opinion. While 10 years ago, he was at 50%. So what did that change for a rep? Is that if you don't influence those 80% that are before he's contacting a salesperson, you're going to miss the sale because your competitor might have done it. So marketing is much more important because today we cover 80% of a sales buying journey. We're not closing, clear, right? Or we have some tools to close, but we are covering now 80%, while 5 years or 10 years ago, we are covering 50%. And if you don't invest in those 80%, your competition will do it. And you're going to have less people calling your own sales rep because they will be self-informed and they're going to engage with another brand that is probably more vocal than you on the market. So you need to find the right mix between the salespeople and the marketing investment to make that happen. And then I would say that you need to show some proof point and own studies from your own company and own market to prove this to your board. But clearly, I think that the COVID is a very tough situation for everyone. But there are two jobs that are emerging from this in terms of importance. It's IT, and we understood all why, and it's marketing. And we also understand why, because, hey, how many of you, of your sales rep came to you, hey, I can't reach my customers. They're home. I don't have their mobile phone. Well, if you had a different strategy and if you have digital engagement investment, you can still reach them differently, but you can still reach them and let them raise hands so you can call them. I can give you leads for that.
Caroline, I hope that helped.
That does indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No, fantastic. Thank you very much, Steve, Caroline. Thank you for joining us. Much appreciated. Up next, Alex, we have Pavel from Bayer, I think. Hey, Pavel, how are you? And what is your question for Alexis?
I'm very well, enjoying the session and enjoying, Olivier, your perspective and insight. There's one thing I would like to hear a little bit more from you, which goes back to, I think, a very insightful refrain that there is one generation different between us and our parents and 3-4 generations between us and our children. I think it's really an insightful way of looking at the diversity. But I wanted you to tell us a little bit how you recognize this in context of how you drive appeal and connection with your organization, because that's not only then creating a difference in terms of consumers, but we then have 5 different generations of our organizations. If you follow your definition, which I fully agree with, and I'm just simply interested, especially given that 1/3 of, referring to your professor, 1/3 of the effort is to building, the commitment and energy of the brand within your organization. How do you bring together this multi-generations organization, ambassadors of the brand together under one organization in a way that it's really connecting well with who these generations are?
It's a great question.
It's a very good question, right? And I think it's broader than marketing, by the way. It's a company story, right? And there are many ways to do that. Ours, at least, I can share you what we do on this, right? We have a lot of employees response group of people that are working on topic, and there is one of them which is about the gender, right? Not gender, the generation population, right? So how do we work with the young generation? In reality, if you look at the people that we are employing, right, the generation that will be by 2024, if I'm not mistaken, the Gen Y, not the Gen Z, will be the first one on the market. So we need to understand them and how they work, right? And I'm quite sure many of you are working with young, or many of you are probably young as well, because I can't see you all right now on the picture. But the way the 25 years old people are working is different, right? Because they're born with the internet generation, and they have a much more linear ways of looking at things from a network point of view. Like that's the fact that social media impacted their network way of thinking. They are less. My generation or my father generation were much more layer centric, right? With a boss and a boss and a boss. They are much more keen on a network thinking. And I think a company needs to think that way as well, because you need to adapt. And if you don't equip them or give them the right way, you won't keep them. So you need to have people that are thinking about the different generation and what are the needs. And you should let them sometimes decide and give feedback. One example, very recent, I'm quite sure you probably all remember, but 10 years ago, nobody had Facebook or LinkedIn at work because we are considering this as a distraction somehow, right? And today it will be completely crazy to think that we don't have that on our network. Or and those generations, they will not understand if you don't give them access to what is their productivity tool. So you always need to think about what's impactful for their mind and how they will be efficient, because they work differently from us. So you need to have we have work group, right, of people that are providing recommendation on what we need to change based on their insights. And obviously that young generation is very interesting in the way they work. So you need to listen to them and make sure you equip them the right way.
And how do you, Alexis, just to kind of follow slightly on Pavel's point there, let's just a specific example. If you deal with something like remote working, and typically, the older generations typically have a house, have spare space, et cetera, younger generations may be on that journey. So, who wants to go into the office, who doesn't? How do you ensure really simple things like the people that are in the office are treated exactly the same as the people that are joining the meeting remotely? These little things that just need to be figured out. Yeah,
I think it's a very good point. There is one word which is, I think, we should call it very importantly, is flexibility. Right? Today, I mean, it's a big F. Flexibility is a big F, because it's if you don't give flexibility, if you don't adapt to your audience internally and externally, you won't get it, right? So for us, by example, when our offices were closed, because of the COVID situation, we were giving an option for people that were in a tough situation, not able to work from home, to go back in the office with very specific environments. You need to be able to help them, right? At the same time, the young generation, they are much more capable than what we think in working and having their own style. And you really need to listen to what they need. So I think the answer for me is flexibility. There is not one size fits all here in the way people work. And if you're not ready for that flexibility, you will not keep and attract the talent. If you force everybody to think the same or to be super the same, working exactly the same, that will not fit, right? And it's valid for all the remote way of working. You need first to equip them very well, because if you don't give them the right equipment, they will go to competition. And then secondly, then you need to have the right flexibility in the way you engage and you help them learning. But you need to feed them. That's my learning as well.
Thank you, Alex. Pavel, did that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. And I want to just close this with just one provocation, which I think is going to be even more as we move on. Because I think what we talk today is 80% of a challenge, which is how we understand those generations that are younger. As the world is less and less linear also, we will have more and more moments that when young people will lead older people. Okay, and that flexibility of understanding that leaders build organizations of different generations. Sometimes it's when 30-year-olds lead an organization that has, I don't know, 40 or 50 years old, and how we make that really clicking, that brings the best out of people coming from different generations. It will be a broader, in my view, even more multi-dimensional topic, even though I agree with you that today the number one thing is, how we people who are not digitally native, the way we were born and how we lived our youth period of life. This is the number one priority, but I think we will bring more dimensions as things will move on.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that comment. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's flexibility all around, isn't it? It's
flexibility both ways.
Yeah.
And sharing knowledge both ways.
Yeah, you have to be. Pavel, thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Really, really, genuinely appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Now, we do have another question. Producer Mike told me in my ear, but I was listening to Pavel. Raluca from Coca-Cola. Hey, Raluca, how are you? And what's your question for Alex?
Hello. Thanks a lot for the opportunity and thanks a lot for the presentation and the discussion. Very insightful. I have probably the last question on the culture of experimentation. We are dealing a lot with this inside our company because we want to nurture this idea of encouraging failure and learning within the organization. So I wanted to get your view on how you nurture it or you encourage this, if so, within your team and your organization.
Another good question.
Just to make sure I fully understand, there was unfortunately some noise on my side. Nurture what? Nurture the...
How do you have a courage of? How do you encourage a culture of failure so that people are not afraid to give things a go? Is that right, Raluca? Is that yes?
Correct. And experimentation.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and that's one of the good things being in marketing, is innovation. So I first of all, it's about like many companies, right? I always have some budget available for innovations, right? And I spare some of that we call it my flexi budget that I decide at my level. And when someone has a great idea, an innovation that he wants to take risks and he can raise the hand, articulate me the story. If I'm in, I invest, and then it's a shared investment, right? Because I've been brought in and I'm aligned with that, and we go together on this and let's have a try. If it fails, it fails. I'm part of it as well. We learn from that, obviously, we learn fast, but it's a failure, it's all fine, right? So I think you need to encourage and be involved as a leader as well in this innovation and risk-taking from those innovation as well. You share the risk, right? Because I think you're gonna learn from that too. And by doing this, by leading with example, you share to people, you can take risks, right? So that's completely fine. If we miss, sometimes we miss. Marketing is also a learning experience. Sometimes we need to achieve our goals, right? And we have a dimension of ambitions and goals, but we can also try things, and I think that's very important. So the big things, the big investment requires always a lot of thinking in terms of infrastructure, but there is always space for tactical innovations, and I'll leave the team fully on board for that, and I'm part of it when needed.
Fantastic. Raluca, does that help?
Yes, very much. 100% agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for your contribution, much appreciated. Alex, we are kind of heading towards an end now. I just wanted to cover off very quickly, because we didn't in fact get to the technology or the society stuff, but which is brilliant, by the way. So very quickly, one technology question, one society question. So fact-based cookie data is gone or going. With the change in how cookies are used now, is there an argument for us still to use that data, or should we only focus on machine learning to create models of customer behavior?
Yeah, first, I think it's a good thing to regulate on privacy, because I mean, again, it's about authenticity, it's about trust. So we need to make sure that we have the right ethics in the way we do business. So we are moving to privacy first marketing, an evolution to permission-based marketing. And I think that's where we as marketers need to create the infrastructure that will help us being there in future. So that will be a big change. So you need to make sure you have the right infrastructure to gather data and to do your own analysis and predictability. So in full transparency, marketing or companies, organizations need to invest in the capability to predict where their customers will buy in future. So you need to create that internally, or you need to buy this from other companies that are doing it. But it's very important to think now on what is my next IT infrastructure that will support my demand generation engine.
It's interesting. So the permission-based marketing thing, I always find is fascinating, particularly for those. Now, I'm going to make I'm based in the UK, grew up in the UK, therefore. So we had, the BBC, the main show, and then you had a commercial channel. But actually, that's not permission-based marketing, because we didn't agree. Nowadays, you can pay for that commercial channel without ads, or you can watch it for free with ads. Now we have permission, because I choose whichever one I do. So it is curious to me how permission-based marketing, it's something that we've all grown up with, all that sort of notion. So actually, I feel it's a little bit confused in people's heads, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Society. We talked about societal issues and all that sort of thing, but there's one thing. Identity management and as a service have already proven to be huge trends within marketing. How do you see these things growing over the next 5 years?
I'm happy you raised the questions, because if you ask me what are the main things that are changing in the next years, I mean, as I said, technology, the evolution of society and everything here, right? But the as a service era is in front of us. I mean, look, many of you, now you're using subscription model in many things, like newspaper, obviously I could quote name Amazon. You have a lot of services that you're used to. And in your personal life, what history teaches us that what's useful for your personal life is becoming in business very fast. So the majority of businesses are now looking at as a service. And that's a trend that we should not forget, because it changed the way you interact with customers as well. Many people think about the buyer journey until the buy is made, the sale is made. But if you go in as a service era, it is a complete change of your buying journey, because now you need to think about keeping customers, but re-engaging customers, and it's not the same content that you need to consume. And here, the identity of your company will be even more important. So it's a change in the model for marketing, and you need to start now thinking about it, because in the next 5 years, that will become the norm. And it's for me right now, we are changing our overall customer buying journey model because of that era, the service era that is coming.
And we've talked about, so one last question, if I may, Alexis. Obviously, the title of this session is kind of evolution of marketing. And I think what you've talked about brilliantly is all of the trends and the things that are affecting that evolution, that are twisting and shaping it. But there's one maybe that we haven't explored yet, and I'd just like to explore it with you. So in the States, McDonald's, I think it is, and I think it might be Walmart or something else, have effectively created a chief experience officer, and they've kind of folded marketing, along with lots of other things, analytics, data, all those sorts of things, into this experience thing, because their punt is that the future of everything is experience. So my question number one to you is do you agree? My question number two then is what do you think that means for marketing?
First, I agree on the importance of the topic, right? Then I think, like many roles, at one point they're going to merge and to become a function. What is very important is that marketing is a sum of art plus science. Science is taking much more importance than it used to be in that mix. And experience is the outcome of that. It's how you engage your customers and how you want to make sure that the experience is appropriate, because customer experience is critical, and we all know that. I mean, look at your own experience, how it influences your judgment about a brand. So a customer experience for me is the role of anyone in a company. It's a company job It should fit within marketing because for me, that's where it's best placed, especially because of the importance of marketing in the buyer journey. But I fully understand that some companies want to highlight this. It could be a communication message or it could be organization. But having customer experience leader is very important. And it could be part of marketing or it could be, but it's often more, if you want, a small team of people. They might report at the board, but it's often a small team of people that are looking at processes that are across the full company. But it could be embedded in marketing or outside marketing. I think the concept of experience is critical and should be an outcome of everything we do. And especially for us as marketers, in many cases, the first interaction that customers does have with the brand is what we do produce. So it's our responsibility to be part of that experience as well.
Fantastic stuff. Alexis, I really, genuinely, thank you very much indeed, sir. That was a fascinating kind of 40 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. Have a great rest of the day, great rest of the summit. Pleasure talking to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.